Hey everybody, Dr. Ray here, and today we're going to talk about a really exciting topic, levels of educational gaming. So basically I came up with these levels. I've been talking to tons and tons of schools and teachers and educators and teaching about this topic for a number of years. How to implement games, gamification, games for learning, you know, all that good stuff into the classroom. And so what I did is I came up with a list from easy to hard on game implementation into the classroom, and I call it the levels of educational gaming. And so what it does is it talks to a teacher, a school, someone who's interested in gamification, games for learning, games, any of that good stuff. How do I implement games into the classroom? Where do I begin? What can I do? What are some examples? What are things that I can do? So what I've done is I've broken it down from simple to more difficult and show you each. I'm going to walk through each of these levels, each step, to show you, well, here's the easiest thing to do, and then here's the hardest. And we're going to go through each one of these. It's going to take a while, so get ready to listen, but you're going to learn something here, so be ready to learn. All right, so as you can see on the screen here, we have my levels of educational gaming. Level 1, games for attention. Level 2, educational or serious games. Level 3, adding game elements. Level 4, enhancing content. Level 5, commercial games for learning. Level 6, game design and development. Level 7, classroom live action role playing. And level 8, esports and extracurricular. All right, so the first thing you might be asking is, well, where's the word gamification on here? Where's the word game-based learning? Look, there are operational definitions of each of these words, and I'm not going to go through and explain each one of them right now. They're all included in this presentation. And a lot of times when I say, like, hey, we're gonna use gamification, a teacher or someone doesn't necessarily know what two different people saying the same word. They're each saying something different, because there's an operational definition of this word that researchers are using, and then there's what everyone else is saying. Like when someone else, you know, general public says gamification, they're talking about everything games. You know, so I kind of dismissed some of those words in this and broke it down to describe each one rather than to define what each of them are. All right, so let's go through each one of these. Here we go. Let's get started. First one, games for attention. That's using any game to get the learner's attention or to motivate. Let me repeat that. Using any game to get the learner's attention or to motivate. Okay, so one of the first things that you need to do whenever you're teaching someone content, if you look at any learning taxonomy, and I have my 4 Ps, the first one is preparation or attention or motivation. If you're using Gagne's 9 events, it doesn't matter. If you want people to learn, the first thing you need to do for your learners is to get their attention. Get their attention. All right, so when getting someone's attention, I have to get them ready to learn. I have to motivate them. And there are a couple reasons that we do this. A lot of people think that when I get someone's attention for learning, that means I need to, like, say why my content's important. That's not necessarily true. What I'm trying to do here is get my learners ready. So, like, let's say a kid comes in and, you know, they didn't get a lot of sleep, or their mom yelled at them in the morning. Or even adult learners, like they're thinking about, like, oh, I've got to pay my mortgage, and they're stressed about whatever it is, COVID and all this stuff. I need to help get them, their mind clear. So think about this. When I have someone, like, you know, meditate, what are they trying to do? Clear their mind, get rid of that negative energy. I'm getting them ready, right? I'm taking out all the bad stuff that's happening, or things that, exciting things, or things in their mind, and getting them ready to learn. All right, so what we did is I've actually done a research study on this topic with Carl Kopp, one of my colleagues. And what we did is we analyzed if people were to, we took 2 groups of learners, and what we did is we analyzed if one group of learners played a game for fun, any random game in the world, for 5 minutes before they learned, versus a group that just took the learning. Who would perform better on the achievement tests? And what we found is that playing that game for fun before learning, that had nothing to do with the content, helped learners learn because it got them ready and motivated. So that's what we do. That's this first step. It does require some kind of technology, but it sets the stage for learning. A disadvantage of this level is that if the game's too exciting, your learners aren't going to want to put it down. So you got to be prepared. And how would we use this? For anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, let the learners do something fun. Have them play some kind of fun game for learning. Some game to set the stage for learning. That's level 1. Super easy to do. Requires no prep other than you setting up some kind of game for the students to play. They could literally play solitaire on the computer that's free on every PC. It doesn't have to be any kind of special game. It doesn't have to be like this huge setup of Minecraft or something. It could be anything. Game for fun. Setting the stage for learning. Level 2. Implementing an educational game to meet some kind of learning objective. Play a game designed for education. So an educational game. We're not talking about a World of Warcraft here. We're talking about an educational game to meet a learning objective. It's super easy to do. You simply incorporate a game into your lesson that's made for learning. The disadvantage of these kind of games, most educational games actually designed for K-12 or learning, are pretty bad. They usually have low budgets. I mean, you got to think like a blockbuster game might have like a $200 million to $1 billion budget to develop. Whereas like most educational games, I design educational games for companies, and though they might pay me for like a little flashcard type game, like $8 grand, $10 grand. Like that's their budget. That was it. So most of these games are factual. They're assessing factual knowledge. They're flashcard type games. And that's not a bad thing if that's your objective, but you're just not hitting that. You're not going to hit those high levels of motivation. You're not going to hit that high level learning objective, that problem solving, transfer. You're not going to really hit that stuff with a lot of educational games. That's not to say it can't be done, because there are tons of them out there that do it. I'm just saying in general, that's usually what you're looking at. They usually have low budgets. Some are painfully boring. Use these wisely. Make sure you're actually finding a game that you think the students will have fun. But there are some cool ones out there, like, the most common, Math Blaster, Jeopardy, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. All great games. You've all played them before. They're all super fun. I mean, even think of like me being a kid. We had like the Oregon Trail and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and some stuff like that. Like there were things out there that were kind of cool. But there are some really cool games, like Microsoft has Ribbon Hero, which allows you to learn like the Microsoft Office suite, like PowerPoint and stuff like that. Tons of cool coding and programming games out there, which are really neat. So there's some cool stuff like that. And there's lots of like science-y, like chemistry and stuff. Some really cool stuff out there. So take a look, explore around. And try to find ones that are a little more exciting than just like the factual, boring one, but actually teach students learning objectives. All right, so that's level 2. Implementing an educational game into the classroom. Level 3, adding game elements to your classroom. Now this is where some people would call gamification. This is like one of the phases of gamification, adding game elements. Adding interactive elements to a course. So what do I mean? I mean adding things like points, badges or certificates, leaderboards, progression bars, things like that. Maybe bonuses, any kind of game element into a classroom. These must be prepped before the course starts. They've got to be meaningful or the learners aren't going to really like them. For an example, I did so one time I started implementing badges into my courses. And what I found is that the first time I did it, and this is like, we're talking like 2012 here, the students were like, this is awesome. This is so cool that you're doing this, Dr. Pastor. This is great. And then the next semester, those same students, like some of the comments were like, the badges were cool at first, but like we can't use these for anything. And it just kind of seems like an additional thing we're worrying about in class. Like they kind of got sick of it because it wasn't meaningful. It didn't provide, there was nothing relevant about it. So, you have to make sure that these are meaningful when you're implementing something like this. They can require an LMS, a learning management system, which means like some online system to track and implement this stuff, which is the way that I was doing it. And most learning management systems that your school is using do have something like this that allows you to help out with that. Some examples of how these game elements, this level 3, is being used outside of education. For example, like the badges. Companies that I think are using the badge system really well are the exercise companies, fitness. Oh my goodness. So like Apple, if you have an Apple Watch or a Garmin watch, every time you do a workout, like if you exercise 7 days in a row, you get a badge. That's pretty cool. Now we're starting to see badges actually take meaning and have some cool stuff. Or like, I'm like on Reddit, I have the example here, Reddit, karma points, like getting karma points is actually meaningful. But even in Reddit, you can get different kinds of badges like next to your name, like verified black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and stuff like that, like the mods verified you and gave you that badge. Now that's where badges become cool. So think about that. We have rewards, credit cards, which I could tell you, just go on and on about why they're great for finance and bad for people. Gas points, Starbucks points, that kind of stuff. Various gratification, like in Facebook, like in Instagram. Think about how someone posts on Instagram and their goal is to see how many likes or views they can get. That gratification. And incorporating things like this into a class strategically to make them useful will increase students' motivation. So level 4 is basically an extension of this. It's kind of taking it to the next level. And it's also, you know, if I had to define the operational definition of gamification, it would be incorporating game elements into a non-game situation and enhancing content in a non-gaming situation. So really this level 3 and 4 are what researchers are referring to when they say the word gamification. But we're modifying course content to make it more game-like. It's game-like without making the course a game. We're not making the course a game here. We're making the course more game-like by modifying the content. So this level 3 was adding game-like elements to a course. On the externally though, like a badge, it wasn't changing the course content at all. Level 4 is actually changing some of the content to make it more game-like. For example, incorporating stories, making a quest as part of a class, adding a quest or some kind of contest within the classroom, or a challenge to learn or do a project, something like that. Maybe adding timers, maybe even going as far as having avatars for certain assignments. We are not making the class a game here yet. We're really just playing with some of the content, some of the learning objectives, trying to incorporate some game-like elements. But this is level 4, enhancing the content. How is this used outside of education? For example, Domino's Pizza always is having different kind of contests. Like they have this app where you can make your own pizza, and if people vote on it and like it, and you get the best one, they'll actually like sell that and stuff. It's a pretty cool contest. Different kind of avatars in social media. We have stories behind brand recognition and stuff like that. You know, the timers or schedules, like Apple has this, you know, every week I get a notification. This is how much screen time you use. So I'm trying to beat it or compete against myself. I've made my content, I've incorporated, now made content in addition to having these badges and cool things. I'm now making my content game-like. Level 5. Taking off-the-shelf commercial games and using it for learning purposes. So think level 2 was using, you know, just a game designed for learning. Level 5 is actually taking a game that was not designed for learning, but using it in the classroom for learning. So now we're talking about professional games with big budgets, big communities, big audiences. They might be being played professionally in the esports world. Kids are going to be playing them at home for fun when they're not at school. So it's taking these cool, fun games and using them for learning purposes. I love this phase. This is one of my favorite things. I love taking these kind of games and using them in my classroom. I love seeing the stuff students can do with these. All right, so some example. And, you know, obviously these do require computers and can require students purchasing and stuff like that. So you always have to plan and worry about budgets and things like that, and maybe convincing parents. But some examples. Minecraft, which is like the biggest one, owned by Microsoft. Super awesome game for so many things. We use this in esports. We've used this for competitions. We use this in camps. We're using this for so many different things. It's such a cool game because you can do so much with it. So Minecraft is one of the best examples. I mean, you can even have things like play a game like, you know, World of Warcraft and write about your favorite character. You know, one of my students, and I'm going to talk about him in a little bit, he did this in his classroom. He used to have his students do all kinds of assignments like this. Play a game with history and discuss like what you actually learned about. Like I've seen some really cool history stuff within games that I've learned about real life events. I mean, it's the same thing in movies. Like you learn about history from watching a movie sometimes and you're like, oh wow, I didn't really know that. Like that's kind of cool. Some other examples, we have America's Army, which is a game that the US military publishes and they use to actually teach people about the military. And they also use it for marketing and stuff. We have World of Warcraft. And when I say video games, it doesn't have the Rubik's Cube. Well, I have some that are actually put together because I do build the Rubik's Cube all the time. This is one of my nervous habits, tics that I do during presentations. I quickly little sit there and be like, whoosh, done, built the Rubik's Cube. But games, this can teach people about pattern recognition, about mathematics, about all kinds of hand-eye coordination, problem solving, all kinds of different skill sets within this little device. So games don't always have to be on a computer, you know. It's one of the things I push is board games, and there are inexpensive ways to do things that don't always require tech. So I know I'm a tech guy, but don't always think that I'm always just pushing technology, because I'm not. All right, level 6. Now we're starting to get into a little more, you know, as I said, it gets harder and harder to do, right? Now we're into design and development of games. Design and development. So this is actually building games, construction, publishing, development, making your own real games. This starts to get a little more complicated. So it can range, this level itself can range from very easy to very difficult. Obviously, very easy is having students make like a board game out of paper and pencil, right? No tech involved. Or they can, you know, even using Minecraft is pretty easy to make a game. You know, my kids 5, 7, and 10 could each very easily make games in Minecraft with no instruction because they just know Minecraft so well. So a lot of kids can do stuff like that. There's also cool games like Mario Maker that make it super easy to make your own game, which is really neat. But that, you know, requires a Nintendo Switch. Then we have where we start to get into a little more difficult, the medium. And those are drag and drop game engines. For example, Scratch, which is really great, free, cool for kids. And my favorite one, and this is huge, a company is supposed to IPO sometime. And if you're watching this and they already did, then great, they did. Which is Roblox. Roblox, if you're not familiar with Roblox, oh man, it's the most popular under 12-year-old game that's out there. I mean, we're talking this company's making billions, and it's basically, it's not even a game. Roblox is a storage place for tons and tons, thousands of different games that community members have made with their game engine. That's what, so there's like a version of Fortnite made in Roblox. There's a version of Minecraft made in Roblox. And it's not real Minecraft, it's Roblox, that they just mimicked it. So kids go crazy and love this. Talk to a kid, go up to any 8-year-old in class and say, what game are you and all your friends are playing? And they're going to say Roblox. So with Roblox, you can create your own games. It's kind of easy to use, but it does require some low-level knowledge of programming. So it starts out really easy with drag and drop and then gets more complicated. So I put this in the medium category. Then we get into hard, which is we get into pure programming or game engines like Unity. They are extremely difficult for the novice user and require lots of planning and lots of prep. But for like a computer science programming or programming course, they can be at perfect. So those are some, you know, within just level 6, there are easy and hard ways to do this. But there's lots of cool options here for design and development. Level 7, classroom, live action role playing. You can see I'm wearing a Dungeons & Dragons shirt. Live action role playing. Oh, I've got my 20-sided dice. Oh, which might not really appear well on the green screen. But I've got my 20-sided dice right here. Involves turning your class into a game. Turning your entire classroom into a real game. This is an extensive undertaking. This is not a simple project. This involves really taking your class into a game. One of the best examples, and I will put this link here, is EduRealms, and this is one of my prior students, Lucas Gillespie, brilliant guy, who was one of the first people to really do something like this. He created WoW in schools, World of Warcraft in schools. Go to his website. He has a whole syllabus on how to implement Minecraft, WoW, and other games into the classroom. Super great websites. I'll totally give him a, recommend you go there. But this involves really creating a class game, like making your classroom a game. Remember level 3 and 4, which I said were those gamification elements? Like level 3 was taking game-like elements and trying to, you know, add like badges and stuff. And level 4 was taking like, you know, trying to implement like a quest, but not turning your class into a game. This is actually making your class a game. It involves a significant amount of work. It is very difficult. It involves a lot of prep, a lot of planning on your end. I mean, you're doing things like calling your students heroes. Your whole class is actually run like a game. It's really taken it to a huge next level, big leap. Super cool. Students will love it. It really does require a gamified LMS if you want to do it well. It's really cool. I love it. I enjoy it. But man, it's a lot of work. You better pay those teachers a lot of money if they're doing stuff like this. All right. And finally, level 8. Creating in and out of school gaming clubs, things like esports, competitive teams, programs. This is the most difficult portion. And I say this because usually it has to happen out of school. We're all of a sudden now creating like a sports team or an extracurricular club, which involves going through parents, principals, school board of educations, in higher ed, going through faculty voting and all kinds of stuff. Very difficult process because I've done it, trust me. It's not super simple. So I put this at level 8. This is the highest part. And why would you do this when you're like, well, all this other stuff was stuff you did in the classroom. Like, how does this one fit in? Like, why? Why would this one fit in? So first of all, having these kind of things, if you were to do this for your school, research has shown that esports or any kind of gaming community or club that has been formed in a school increases student retention and school spirit. Like, all of a sudden, these kids that weren't involved in the school are all of a sudden involved. And now they're like, oh, I love school now. Like, go team. Like, they have something to cheer on. So if you're not familiar with what esports are, they are competitive video games played electronically by professionals and amateurs who compete in high-stakes events. It's just like sports, except they're all played on the computer. But it does increase retention and school spirit. These can increase student learning. We found that most students that play esports are healthier than the general population. We've found that most students that play esports perform really well in school. If you want to know why, if you look at any giant tech company, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Google, and ask any of their CEOs, Facebook, what got you involved in technology? All of them will have the same response because I've looked up all their interviews where they've said it. Oh, I was a kid, I used to play video games a lot and that got me into, I wanted to make my own game, or I wanted to learn to program, or I wanted to learn to do this. Boom. That's why. That's why stuff like this, implementing an esports club and getting students involved who might not have this access to this kind of stuff at home, can help get them interested in tech and STEM and mathematical related, engineering related fields. That's why it's awesome. Jobs, and so this is a new field. Imagine we have sports right here, and esports is this new thing that was just created. Whole new field, very similar to sports, like growing field. $1 billion industry right now. I've seen some estimates up to $25 billion. It's a brand new industry, so though we're in the wild west of esports, lots of different things happening right now. Lots of changes will happen, and in the next 5 years, the industry will look totally different than it does today. So I'm hoping for good things to come out of it, but I mean, you never know. But right now, jobs in the field are expected to grow 35% year over year. So it's a field where we have created new jobs that did not exist 7 years ago, have now been created. There was no such thing as a shoutcaster for League of Legends 5 years ago, and now there is. All these new jobs have been created for events and everything else. It does require technology. It does require buy-in time. It can be difficult to implement, but it can be well worth it, and the rewards are amazing. You know, I'm the esports coordinator at UNCW, and I have students come up to me and tell me, Dr. Pastor, you know, I love UNCW, it's great, but I really just felt like it was like, I didn't really fit in. And now that we have this esports club and esports here, I actually feel like I belong to the university. Like I'm a part of something. And hearing that, it's just amazing to hear students say stuff like that. And I love that. So, you know, it can be the reward can be well worth the effort. All right, so those are my levels of educational gaming. From simple to hardest. Simple to more complex. Let's go through them really quick. So remember, we start out, if you want to know, how can I implement games into the classroom? How can I implement gamification? What are some ways a teacher can start out doing this? We have level 1, which is the most simple way, and level 8, which is the most complex. And, take your goals, take your objectives. What do you want to do in the classroom? Pick these and start to pull out pieces and combine them into your own thing as a teacher. So level 1 was games for attention. Remember, that was using any game to get students ready to learn. Level 2, educational or serious games. Taking a game like Jeopardy and using it in your classroom, or Math Blaster or whatever. Level 3, adding game elements like badges. Level 4, enhancing, actually changing some content to add things like quests. Level 5, using commercial games for learning like Minecraft, World of Warcraft. Level 6, actually developing your own games. Level 7, actually turning your class into a game, which I call CLARP or CLARPing. If you're familiar with LARP or LARPing, live action role playing, I just put the C for classroom. Pretty nifty, right? And finally, level 8, adding esports or extracurricular gaming communities into your school. And that's it. If you guys have any questions, please comment in the video. Please like, please subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any comments, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer. I do a lot of presentations on esports. I do a lot of presentations on gaming and all that stuff. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed. Later all.